And now on Grid Tonight, Ford is returning to Le Mans in 2027. Will this reignite the iconic Ford versus Ferrari rivalry? Jorge Martin was injured on day one of preseason testing in MotoGP. Could he miss the start of the 2025 season, putting his title defense chances in doubt? NASCAR will start rewarding the fastest driver from each points paying race. Could the new Xfinity Fastest Lap make a difference in the championship? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me are Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Units. We encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat, support us through Super Chat, and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. Now here's Josh with our top story this evening.
Thank you, Kobe. Good evening to you. Good evening, Matt. And good evening, everybody. So, in 2027, Ford will enter the FIA World Endurance Championships Hypercar class with a new prototype and compete for the overall win in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in a full factory-backed program. Between 1966 and 1969, Ford secured 4 consecutive overall victories at Le Mans. Since those days, Ford have mostly focused on racing for class victories with the Ford GT and the Ford Mustang GT3 in recent years. Interestingly enough, Ford didn't mention anything about racing its new prototype in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. According to Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com, IMSA representatives attended Ford's announcement and believed that the Ford LMDH prototype will compete in IMSA's GTP class in 2028 or 2029. The graphic courtesy there of Ford Performance. Kobe, starting with you on this one. Are you excited about the return of the Ford versus Ferrari rivalry at Le Mans? And do you find it hard to believe that Ford would return to prototype racing without competing in IMSA first?
Yeah, Josh, this one's been rumored for a while, hasn't it? About Ford potentially coming back to prototype racing, then McLaren as well. No, Zach Brown is probably a few months away from making a decision. We're probably going to know something about a potential McLaren prototype program by the time we get to Le Mans later this summer in June. But yeah, it's so exciting that Ford is going to be coming back with a full factory back program to take on the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2027. I think it's going to be very exciting, assuming that they're still going to be there in 2027, the battle between Cadillac and Ford, for us American sports car racing viewers. And then if you've seen the movie Ford versus Ferrari, I'm sure you're very excited to see this rivalry start back up again after so many years. Yeah. If you're racing in GTs and that Ford Mustang GT3 beating the Ferrari, that's a great thing. But there's nothing like going for the win, going for the overall win at Circuit de la Sarre. So to see the Ford prototype come online, assuming they of course is gonna still be running the factory Ferrari prototype, it's gonna be so much fun seeing Ford versus Ferrari again. I think it's gonna be super exciting to see this battle. And in regards to them not mentioning IMSA at all in the press release, that was very interesting. I didn't expect that at all, but yeah, I agree. It would be really surprising for Ford to decide to take on the World Endurance Championship and the 24 Hours of Le Mans with that in IMSA program. Ford, a major American manufacturer, not racing in America in IMSA, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So although it wasn't mentioned in this announcement, yeah, Marshall Pruitt's credible reporter, so I tend to believe him here when he reports that Ford will probably come in a year or two later to the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, and I think it's a great announcement all around.
That's how excited I am. It's up on the wall already. Can't wait for this. Let me just sit back down. Sorry, make everyone seasick. Yes, very excited about this. As you say, Kobe, we knew this was kind of coming for a little while. Just more manufacturers to sports car racing. It's just excellent, isn't it? We're going to talk about another one shortly. All of this new stuff that's happened in the last couple of years, Ferrari, Porsche coming back, Audi were coming in, now they're not, Aston Martin coming, we're going to talk about Ford, Lamborghini, Cadillac. It's just the rise of sports car racing, and Le Mans and the World Endurance Championship over this last little period has been sensational. And of course that you have to tie IMSA into that as well, and we saw what a terrific race we saw at Daytona, of course, last week to kick off their season. So very, very exciting stuff. I'm interested to see what they do with IMSA. Maybe we'll get an announcement down the road. Of course, we've got plenty of time for all this to shake out in the wash. Or maybe we'll have like the works cars in the World Championship and some very highly strung customer team in IMSA, like a Multimatic running the Ford program for Ford, in Ford colours, but not really a proper factory team. Add Genesis to that list as well, which we talked about just before Christmas coming in the next couple of years, the Hyundai brand. So, massive time for sports car racing fans, which of course we all on this show are. Very, very exciting news indeed that the Blue Oval is back at Le Mans.
Absolutely can't wait to see this. When we saw it came up on the monitors, I was like, yes, Ford v Ferrari again. But Hypercar is now looking fantastic, and so is WEC. They really are sort of taking the pinnacle of performance technology for road cars away from other series like Formula E and Formula One. Adam says, red versus blue, Ferrari versus Ford. The rivalry is back. Can't wait. And I'm certainly on that mix as well. Daniel says as well, definitely looking forward to Ford jumping in. And Kobe as well. So there you go. Always nice to have people shout out. Now, in another huge announcement from Ford as well, in 2026, the Blue Oval will be teaming up with the premier powerhouse team in the Repco Supercars Championship, the 888 Red Bull Ampol Racing. Now, 888 won't just be switching to Ford, but they'll also replace Dick Johnson Racing as Ford's lead supercar team. Now, in the past, 888 and Ford worked together from 2003 throughout 2009. During that time, they won the Bathurst 1003 times with Greg Louds and Jamie Whincup, including back-to-back drivers' titles for Whincup. Mark Rushbrook, as well, Global Director of Ford Performance, said that they've always admired 888's unwavering commitment to excellence and believes that this new partnership feels right. Graphic courtesy there of 888. Matt, start with you on this one. Are you shocked by 888 switching from the Chevrolet to the Ford? And do you anticipate them continuing to be the top team in supercars despite the manufacturer switch?
Well, I mean, as you say, it's not the first time this team has done this GM Ford switcheroo. And now they've flip-flopped back the other way. Becoming the homologation team is big for all of the Ford camp, because ever since we've had this new rule set and we're now just about to start the third year of it, it's been a bit of a struggle for the Ford teams. Generally, parity has been the word. They have not won as many races as the Chevrolets, and have been at times vastly off the pace. We've had some peaks and some troughs while they've been trying to get it right. End of 23. Last couple of rounds, sort of post Bathurst, the Mustang looked like it was the car to beat. But then through the season last year, of course, Red Bull got rolling again with the Camaro, and we saw Will Brown run to the championship last year. So interesting flip flop, because of course with Ford losing a team, because they've been running Walkinshaw and Andretti United have been running Ford. They're of course switching to Toyota, which has left the door open for the Ford to be moved over to T8. And they want to run 5 teams. That's what they've said. So they picked that one back up, lost one, and picked one back up again within the Ford camp. So they want to get with that. I'm sure everybody at DJR is pretty disappointed that they being the homologation team, although, as I said, they've had their struggles. I'm sure they'd be sad to be sort of knocked off the perch as the number one team in that sense. But on the racetrack, they haven't been the number one team. It's been Tickford at most of the time with Walkinshaw, and even the Penrite cars, the Grove team, with Matt Payne winning a couple of races last year. So plenty of spice within the Ford camp, and now bringing, you would imagine it would say the same, bringing Will Brown and Brock Feeney back into it for next year, 26, with Toyota coming in. This year's going to be really good in supercars, and 26 is already lined up to be really good from the get-go.
Yeah, definitely. And Adam Limmery says when he heard this news, you can believe it, a lot of people in Australia aren't happy. You're probably speaking about the Dick Johnson racing fans, because, Dick Johnson's been a loyal Ford supporter for many years, and for his team, as Matt said, to get knocked off the perch like this has to be frustrating. And also switching to a team like 888, to be, I guess, your quote-unquote factory Ford, your elite factory Ford team there, it just shows you how serious Ford is about winning. And Dick Johnson Racing have done a lot of winning in the past, but ever since, Scott McLaughlin left for IndyCar and Roger Penske decided, to pull out of supercars. This team is really, has not been the same at all. When McLaughlin and Penske were there, they were on another level. But since both of them have left, teams kind of fallen off, and they've really been working hard to rebuild. But like I always say, this is a "what have you done for me lately" type of business. And to be honest, Dick Johnson Racing hasn't really done a lot of good things for Ford. With the drivers that they've had the last few years, Will Davison and Anton De Pasquale, who's no longer with the team, and then also you got Dick Johnson Racing attracted, one of the top drivers on the market in a Brody Kostecki, who's going to be in one of their Fords this year. But even all of that wasn't enough, to convince Ford that they still deserve to be the premier Ford team. So I'm sure that really stings a little bit, but maybe they'll light a fire under the Dick Johnson Racing Group so the Chevy powered Ford team can, try to raise this game this year and get back to its winning ways more consistently. And if you have a driver like Brody Kostecki and some of the people that they brought over from Erebus, I think they can potentially, get back to close to being to where they used to be. But yeah, I was really surprised about Triple Eight, switching from Chevrolet to Ford. This is something that I did not see coming at all. And maybe Triple Eight is trying to get out ahead of something because, as we know, the Chevrolet Camaro model has been discontinued. And there's also been a lot of rumors about the future of General Motors and the Repco Supercars Championship. So maybe this is Triple Eight getting out ahead of, all that uncertainty, because Ford is showing, long-term commitment to the Repco Supercars Championship, while we're still kind of waiting and seeing what Chevrolet is going to do here. So from that side of the business, I understand why Triple Eight might want to switch to Ford, because they're offering that more stability right now rather than the wait and see. But when you put Ford and Triple Eight, together, I think it's a potent duo, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do moving forward. And Adam also said that a lot of Triple Eight fans aren't happy with the move at all, and understandably so in their case. But hey, I still think Triple Eight Ford, they can get it right, and they can do a lot of great things on there. I find it hard to believe, even with the manufacturer switch. I know we've seen this a lot, especially in NASCAR, when a team will switch manufacturers, they have a fall off in performance, and I'll be interested to see if Triple Eight's going to fall off at all, or are they going to continue to be out there dominating with Will Brown and Brock Feeney.
Adam's right. There are a lot of people not happy about this, but this happened the other way, as you mentioned, Josh, in 2009, when they fell out with Ford and switched to Holden. And then it was the same, but the other way. And it's the same every time a team changes manufacturers in supercars. Even though we've not got Holden anymore, it is still, we talked about red versus blue with Ferrari and Ford before, it is still red versus blue, or in now this case, blue versus yellow, as they're branded on the TV graphic with Chevrolet. So it is still tribal down there. And if it is going to end up being Ford versus Toyota and no General Motors entrant whatsoever, all of those people's heads will completely explode.
We're in for a very interesting couple of years with the Ford brand. Entering Formula One, World Endurance Championship, IMSA coming in, big changes down in supercar land as well. This is going to be fantastic. Ford really are sort of gripping motorsport at the moment and starting to go like that with us. So we can't wait to see what they're going to do next, especially as rumours increase about other championships they might be entering. Now, speaking of other championships, defending MotoGP world champion Jorge Martin's title defence got off to a tough start after he was involved in a high-speed major crash on the opening day of pre-season testing in Malaysia. In turn 2, at the Sepang International Circuit, Martin suffered a high side and was thrown off his bike headfirst onto the pavement. He was taken to a local hospital for further evaluation, where he was given a CT scan and an MRI. The tests came back negative for any head injuries, surprisingly. However, he has suffered other major injuries, a fracture in his right hand and multiple fractures in his left foot. Martin will stay in a Malaysian hospital overnight and then fly back to Spain tomorrow to undergo surgery on his right hand and left foot. Now, after spending the first 4 years of his MotoGP career with Ducati, Martin was just getting up to speed with a new team and manufacturer of Aprilia. Now his availability for the start of the 2025 MotoGP season is in serious doubt, with the new season beginning in less than a month in Thailand on March the 2nd. 2 other riders were also injured in pre-season testing. Trackhouse rider Raul Fernandez suffered a broken bone in his left hand, and VR46's Fabio Di Giannantonio also suffered his left collarbone with a fracture, photo courtesy of MotoGP. we are only one day into 2025. It's only been 8 hours. I know I've covered them all. But Kobe, starting with you, how big of a setback is this for Jorge Martin's title defense?
It's quite a setback for Jorge Martin getting up to speed. But in regards to title defense, I still think, Ducati is going to be the favorite to win the championship. And him being on that Aprilia, Jorge Martin probably won't be able to, do some of the great things that he was able to do on the Ducati in 2024. But instead of looking at this as a big setback for his title defense, I look at this more as a big setback of him getting up, like you're saying, getting up to speed with a new team manufacturer in Aprilia here, and to lose his valuable track time on that bike, that truly sucks for Jorge Martin. But looking at the start of the season, like I say, less than a month now, Thailand on March the 2nd. What day is it now? Well, over there it's now February the 6th. So I highly doubt, with the injuries he suffered, he's probably not gonna be ready to go for the season opener. And when you're missing valuable opportunity to score points like that, and the rounds start to add up, naturally you're not going to be able to be where you want to be in the championship battle. So really an unfortunate situation for Jorge Martin. Hate to when I was up very early or late this morning, depending on where you were, I saw this news. I'm like, oh my goodness, when I saw that he suffered a horror crash, and then saw the video, and I'm like, wow, he's very lucky, because when he landed on his head, I was like, this guy surely has a concussion. And then when they come back that he didn't, I'm like, he got lucky. It could have been a lot worse than what it was. And like you're saying, Josh, 8 hours in, we're just at the very beginning of the MotoGP season here in preseason testing, and we've already had 3 riders, out with injuries. Also sending well wishes to Raul Fernandez and Fabio Di Gianantonio too, as they recover from their injuries. It's really crazy. We're only a few hours in the test and already got 3 riders suffering major injuries, and one of the most notable ones being your defending MotoGP world champion, Jorge Martin.
Yeah, big news from Sepang then overnight with this news. 3 of them down, injured all in the first day of testing. This is going to turn into 2022 again, wasn't it? When we almost went through the whole year without the full grid on the grid because there was at least one person always injured. But big for Martin. I think you're right. What Kobe was saying there about, I don't think he was really in a position to be in the hunt perhaps through the year for actually defending the championship. I think it's going to be a Marc Marquez show this year once he gets really up to speed with that new Ducati. But to have the champion down and out perhaps is big for the first round of the season. But let's not forget that 2009, I want to say, when Jorge Lorenzo broke his collarbone at Assen in practice, flew back to Spain, had it plated, came back for the race and still finished 5th. So miracles can happen. So I wouldn't expect we'll see Jorge Martin on the grid in Thailand in 4 weeks' time. But what fitness and what, race fitness state he'll be in, of course, is going to be a different question altogether.
MotoGP testing is at 2 a.m. British time as well, and that'll be 10 a.m. over there in Malaysia. Give you a quick rundown of the times because they're still on, thankfully, our systems. Quartararo ended day 1 fastest on 1:57.555. Then it was Marc Marquez, Alex Marquez, Ferdinand Aguirre, and Franco Morbidelli rounding out the top 5. So expect to see a lot of the wildcard riders participate in day 2, the likes of which we are mainly going to see maybe Andrea Dovizioso come in as well. And Trackhouse have got a couple lined up as well. So Aston Martin have officially unveiled its Valkyrie Hypercar set to compete this season in the FIA World Endurance Championship and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. The Aston Martin Thor team will return to the 24 Hours of Le Mans this summer in hopes of winning overall for the first time since 1959. Now, in WEC, Aston Martin will field 2 cars in the hypercar class and announce the driver lineups for both entries, starting with the number 007 Aston Martin. Harry Tincknell and Tom Gamble will run the full season, while Alex Riberas and Marco Sorensen will be in the number 9 Aston Martin. And after skipping the Rolex 24 at Daytona, the new Aston Martin prototype will make its IMSA debut in next month's Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring. That's going to be a lot of fun covering that one as well. Now, Ross Gunn and Roman De Angelis will be be behind the wheel of the number 23 Aston Martin in the GTP class. It'll be the first time that we'll see an LMH car race in IMSA competition, and we've only seen LMDH cars race since the switch to GTP and Hypercar platform. Now, for Le Mans, we'll see an all-British lineup of Ticknor, Gamble and Gunn in the number 7, the number 007, but DeAngelis will join with Beres and Sorensen in the number 009, graphic courtesy of Aston Martin. Personally, I think they made a mistake there. They should have gone with 006 because that was GoldenEye. They've missed an opportunity. I'm very sorry, but they have. Should be 006 and then 007. But Matt, starting with you. Are you looking forward to seeing what Aston Martin can accomplish this year with its new Valkyrie hypercar program on both sides of the Atlantic?
Yeah, very much so. Looking forward to Qatar at the end of March for the season opener for WEC. That'll be its first outing. End of this month, end of February. And then Sebring a couple of weeks later for its IMSA debut. That's going to be a tough one at Sebring for a first one out. The billiard table smoothness of Qatar, followed by the lumpy and bumpy of Sebring for round 2. So plenty of time for it to get up to speed. Hopefully it does. This doesn't turn into another Lamborghini, which has not had the best of time in IMSA or WEC competition so far. But yeah, very excited to see this as a Brit. It's always good to have another British mark to cheer on. Let's get Jaguar back as well. We can add that to the list of the names that we talked about earlier on when we were talking about Ford. 007 and 009 have been the traditional Aston Martin numbers for the last 25 years, as far as I can remember, at Le Mans, back in the DBR9 days. So they're the numbers. Heart of Racing, of course, will be part of that squad and piloting the car in IMSA, as you said. So, and running their 1GT D car too. There is the Heart of Racing color scheme on the car. Looks great in both the green and the blue. So very excited to see what it can do. There's been some spy shots and things of it testing throughout the end of last year here in the UK, at Donington Park especially. So they've had plenty of miles already. Let's not go full blown. This is going to take them some time to get up to speed, of course, with the drivers and the team and everything to get them going. But a couple of races before we get to Le Mans, of course, through both sides of the Atlantic, with the European start to WEC and IMSA. Maybe they can do the same as BMW have done in the most recent times and could have congeal the teams together and have all that data. And it seems to have really worked out for BMW. So hopefully it works out for Aston Martin as well.
Yeah, I think the Aston Martin Valkyrie hypercar looks really good. It seems like they have a really good team in the heart of racing running this factory 10 other team principal. Ian James, it's been really amazing to watch him grow this program over the years. They're in multiple different series all across there in IMSA. They're in the World Endurance Championship. I believe we saw them at the Bathurst 12-hour last weekend as well. We've seen them in some of the other 24-hour races that have been happening over the winter as well. And also seen them in GT World Challenge America. The heart of racing is a global team. They're everywhere. It seems like they're on every side of the world. And this is a really great team that Aston Martin they're having running this car. And Matt, you talked about seeing like some footage of this car over there in the UK. We've also seen some footage of them running here in America. If you go on, I believe his name is Lanky Turtle's YouTube page. He's a guy who travels back and forth between Sebring and Daytona, and he collects a lot of great footage of these cars testing, and he has 2 different videos of this Aston Martin Valkyrie hypercar testing at Sebring and Daytona in that V12 engine. It sounds amazing. It kind of reminds me of old school Formula One car with the sound. I think it's going to be a fan favorite from a sound perspective. But how will they do on the racetrack? Way too early to know. But like you're saying, Matt, hopefully it won't go like the way Lamborghini is going. And we even talked about Lamborghini on our previous program, especially I think it was our Grid Live pre-race show for the Rolex 24. How after things didn't go well with the Iron Lynx, they switched to Riley Motorsports, which has a great reputation here in IMSA in the United States. But even running with Riley Motorsports, they still retired very early on in the Rolex 24 before the sun could even go down on Saturday afternoon. Unfortunately, that Lamborghini prototype program is starting to give me the vibes of almost the Nissan LMP1 effort, that we saw within the last decade, and we all know how that went, unfortunately. But all in all, I think Aston Martin seems to be headed on the right track, and looking forward to seeing what this car can do once it gets on track in the World Endurance Championship at Qatar, and then the 12 hours of Sebring at IMSA. I think it's a very exciting time to be in sports car racing. We just talked about Ford, got Aston Martin coming in, and Matt, you mentioned Genesis as well a little while ago, and it just seemed like Ford's taking the same route as Genesis, because Genesis is going to be coming to the World Endurance Championship next year, and then they're going to do IMSA the following year, which it seems like what Ford's going to do with its program as well. World Endurance Championship one year, and then go to IMSA the next.
Absolutely. And the tagline that they put on their press release was "Born for the road, fine-tuned for the track," which is, I think, fantastic. That's because, of course, it was designed, the Valkyrie, for road, and the Hypercar has just been adjusted from the road-going version. So it's sort of an opposite way round of how we do it normally. Everyone, Supercars fans, didn't see that coming of Triple Eight move, but now I see Trackhouse Racing buying a Supercar team as well. I'd like to be the GM factory team. Every fan in the GM camp didn't see that. Yeah, so a factory team would sort of make a lot of sense, wouldn't it, for Trackhouse to come in with General Motors? That sort of is a sort of no-brainer.
First I'd seen of that one, Denver, that Trackhouse might be getting involved in Supercars. So that would be interesting, wouldn't it? With obviously the NASCAR program and the MotoGP program spreading. Justin Marks continuing to spread his wings across the globe, which would be interesting. And with his tie-up, maybe we will get Kyle Larson at the Adelaide 500 in a Trackhouse branded Camaro in the years to come.
Well, speaking of Trackhouse, to let them know, MotoGP, Ayagura, who is coming in as a rookie this year from Moto2, very successful Moto2, I should say, coming in, 158.763. He was 16th overall, and Ralph Fernandez ran only 3 laps in his test day. Of course, 201, 208. We can't really read much into that, and Trackhouse are going to bring in a sub in again. But it was interesting that Ralph Fernandez last year also had an accident that put him out for the first day of the test. So it's sort of repeat for Trackhouse to bring in what we're hearing is Lorenzo Salvadori. So we'll see when that happens at 2 a.m. So yeah, Trackhouse would be fun. Their new livery has certainly been turning eyes in the MotoGP paddock because it does, for once, resemble NASCAR. So it's not too bad with its logo on the side. Now, speaking of NASCAR, following a model that we've seen in Formula One, NASCAR will start awarding a single point to the fastest driver in each points-paying race across its 3 national series. This will be called the Xfinity Fastest Lap, which will count towards the drivers' and owners' standings. To go along with the bonus point, the driver in each series who ends the year with the most fastest laps will get to donate to a charity or community-related cause of their choice. The Cup Series driver will receive $30,000, $20,000 for Xfinity, and $10,000 for the Truck Series. Last season, Kyle Larson had led the fastest lap of the race 5 times, which would have given him the 5 additional points needed to win the regular season championship over Tyler Reddick, who ended up winning it by 1 point. On a separate note, after being the title sponsor of NASCAR's Tier 2 series for the last decade, 2025 will be the final year it will be called the Xfinity Series. When it was announced that Camping World would stop sponsoring the Truck Series at the end of the 2022 season, many wondered if an old friend would pick up the phone. Well, it happened because Craftsman came back to serve as the Truck Series title sponsor again in 2023. Craftsman's was previously the title sponsor of the Truck Series from 1996 to 2008. Now, with Xfinity on the way out, some people have wondered if history could repeat itself. If Craftsman's can return to the Truck Series, then could we see the Anheuser-Busch make a surprise return and replace Xfinity to bring back the Busch Series name? Stranger things have happened. Busch previously sponsored what's known today as the Xfinity Series from the 1980s throughout to 2007. The graphic courtesy there of NASCAR. The Anheuser-Busch, of course, my eyes are sort of going all over. I can't remember if I've said that right or wrong. I'm running on very little sleep coming in. But Matt, do you think the Xfinity Fast Lap could be a huge difference in points battles throughout the year? And is the return of the Busch Series name a realistic possibility, in your opinion?
To pick up on your Kyle Larson point, if he hadn't reigned at Indianapolis, he would have got points at Charlotte and he would have won the regular season championship that way as well. So let's not go, oh, if this had happened. Thank you, Xfinity. They've been a huge partner of that series for the last few years, and NASCAR as a conglomerate, as a global. This is, which is great, and they put loads into it. I'm going to be unfortunate to stop hearing the drivers saying our car was as fast as Xfinity Internet in every post-race interview from the end of next season onwards, which will be a shame. I don't like this fastest lap point, though. Much like Formula One, very unnecessary. Unless we get to somewhere in the playoffs, like at the Roval, where someone who's had damage and is several laps down, needs something to get them through the next phase of the playoffs and having a fresh set of tyres and dropping back to the back of the field when they can't gain positions to score an extra point by getting the fastest lap in, much like Danny Rick at Singapore in the Grand Prix last year, could get them through. That's another dramatic point I suppose we could perhaps look forward to having as a talking point in the autumn. But the charity money bit is great, but the fastest lap point is I feel like very unnecessary, and NASCAR don't need to keep throwing these little gimmicks in from time to time. We'll talk about it for about 3 weeks at the beginning of the season. Then the storylines will pick up. Everyone will forget all about it, and then we'll get to the end of the season, and they'll go, "Oh, if he'd scored a fastest lap point here, he would have made the playoffs." If there's, around the bubble, then it all will come back up again. We'll see. Busch coming back would be good. So we'll have Craftsman, Busch. If we can just get Winston back as the Cup. Oh no, hang on, we can't do that. That would be bad. But there's other bad things going on in the States in the political world, so anything could happen.
You went there. Yeah.
But you have to wait for 30 days to find out.
There are a lot of bad political things going on in the United States as well. I mean, we can't let racing and we can't let racing and politics mix.
No,
Evening, Danica.
We're fine ones to talk.
Yes. Now, here's Matt White with our latest from the Grid EPI update.
Thank you, Josh. Race number 4 of the 2025 Grid Endurance Performance Index of 2025 happened at the weekend. It was the Maguire's Bathurst 12-hour at the Mountain, the second big endurance race really of the season, or third, I suppose, if you include the Dubai 24 hours. One, again, they were having a massive hot streak at the beginning of this year by WRT in their BMW, in the Procast and overall. Brothers in the car for the first time. Kelvin van der Linde on his BMW debut, sharing with brother Sheldon and Augusto Farfus to take the victory in the overall category. There is the car on screen. The fourth pair of brothers to win an endurance race at Bathurst is your facts for the evening. In 1962, Ian and Leo Gagan won a 6-hour race at the Mountain. In 1997, Jeff and David Brabham won the 1000, the Super Touring race in the BMW. And Grant and Ian Sherrin won the Bathurst 6-hour in 2018. So the fourth set of brothers to get a Bathurst overall win at the weekend. So congratulations to WRT, their third win of the season in the Grid EPI, with Dubai and Abu Dhabi for the 6-hour that followed the week after. And now this one. Other categories on the weekend, 8th overall, and the winners of the Pro-Am category were Arise Racing in their Ferrari, Jackson Evans, Elliot Shute, Brad Schumacher, the Bathurst native, and their hot gun for the weekend, Alessio Rivera, pulled in to add to that team. They were the winners in that car. You can see on screen. They're finishing 8th overall. The silver class was won by Wall Racing in their Lamborghini. Tony D'Alberto, Brendan Leach, Grant Denyer, and Adrian Dietz winning the silver category and finishing 9th overall in that car on the screen. And in 7th place overall in the bronze category, beating both the silver class and the Pro-Ams, was, we talked about them a little while ago, Heart of Racing, running a Mercedes. Strange thing to see. We were talking about them with Aston Martin earlier in the show, but they ran a Mercedes this weekend at the Mountain, and they were the winners of the bronze category, with Ross Gunn, Zach Robichon, and the team principal, Ian James, getting the victory in the bronze category, 7th overall in the race. And because they beat two categories that were perhaps higher than them in the ranking, they get bonus points in the Grid EPI. So provisionally, unprovisionally, Zachary Robichon is the Grid Endurance Performance Index leader unofficially at this stage. We'll have the first proper top 10 for you on the first show in April, once we've got some more of the big races out of the way and a full look at the leaderboard. 2 more races come up this weekend, and they are from the Dubai Autodrome, where we've been for the 24 hours. We're there for 2 4-hour races this weekend for the Asian Le Mans Series. It's their time to shine. 2 races at Dubai this week, and then 2 races at Abu Dhabi next weekend to conclude their season. So plenty more pictures to show you on the show next week, perhaps, if we get multiple class winners across the board. All of those pictures in this segment are from SRO and the teams themselves. Thank you to those guys for lending us their images. And now it's time to hand over to Kobe for more of this week's news.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more. I can't even talk. Next time for some more motorsports news from around the world, and we actually don't really have much this week because it's been a relatively quiet news week on the motorsports front. Team Penske announced organizational changes with team president Tim Cindric taking a step back. Moving forward, Cindric will move away from being the overall day-to-day leader of Penske's racing programs. However, he will stay in his role leading its IndyCar program and have oversight of the team's racing archives and historical assets. And in this statement, Tim Cindric said, "I have lived my dream job for the past 25 years as the overall leader of the Penske racing organization. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best people in the business while achieving many milestones together. I've decided I need to make a change that provides me with the flexibility I need at this stage of my career. I appreciate the understanding Roger has provided throughout our conversation, and I'm confident the team will continue to succeed as we have a proven leadership team in all areas." And that statement right there from Tim Cindric, and the graphic courtesy of Team Penske. 4-time NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour champion Justin Bonsignore will compete in 9 Xfinity Series races for Joe Gibbs Racing. Bonsignore will drive the number 19 Toyota after impressing last year in his Xfinity debut at New Hampshire, where he drove all the way up into the top 5 before an incident ruined a strong performance. The modified star will compete in the Xfinity season opener next weekend at Daytona, including Homestead, Bristol Spring Race, Rockingham, Pocono, Iowa, Bristol Fall Race, the Kansas Fall Race, and the season finale at Phoenix. Bonsignore said after a strong Xfinity debut at Loudon, he wanted to pursue a larger schedule for 2025, and he's looking forward to having some fun chasing trophies in his limited schedule. Graphic courtesy of Joe Gibbs Racing. And that's all of the headlines I have for you this week. Not really much going on, but I'm sure there's a lot more going on in our Hots and Knots segment with Matt.
Thank you, Kobe. Quickly mention before we get to Hots and Knots, this is the final weekend of the year until December where there is no pick-a-winner races. He's back next week with the Daytona 500 and Formula E and Rally Sweden next weekend. So we've got a full gamut of points to pick up in pick-a-winner next week. But this is the final pick-a-winner race weekend of the whole season where there is no points up for grabs. So make sure you've got your picks in for those races next weekend. We'll give you the reminder, of course, on the show next week. Time to bring Josh back for Hots and Knots, as we always do to end the show. Slow on news. I'm kind of slow on Hots and Knots, I think, this week.
There's nothing going on. Yeah. It's sort of MotoGP's testing, so there's not much there because it's all been not because of the amount of injuries we've got. And there's been no F1 launches because, you know, they've all now sort of been scrammed to the end of the month. And it feels like a very flat February already.
Yeah,
it's weird.
The F1 launch is Williams next Friday on Valentine's Day. So you can, all the Carlos Sainz fans will be loving that one, I'm sure, on Friday to get to see him in Williams colours for the first time. But yeah, a distinct lack. I was going to go with Knots being the MotoGP injuries, but we've kind of covered that off already. The only other knot that I have is from Bathurst, and the very scary, could have been a lot scarier, accident for Stephen Grove in the Mercedes at the top of the hill in the opening hours of that race, where he almost left the racetrack over the concrete barrier. In the still images, just looks wild. Injured his back, but other than that, he's fairly okay. So we wish Stephen a speedy recovery, but that could have been very, very frightening if that car had cleared the concrete wall.
Many people have been saying, "Oh, is now the time we're going to have catch fencing there?" I was like,
"Yeah,
you've got to sort of say, yes, it'll ruin the pretty scenery, but if a driver goes over there, I'd rather have a catch fencing there to stop that, because that was like the last warning we're ever going to get, because that we've been close before, but that was literally just millimeters to going over the way it crashed that energy." Adam says, "What's hot? Clash at Bowman Gray, old school NASCAR racing. I loved it. I loved it. The Bowman Gray was way better than the last 6 or 7 ones we had at Daytona, combined with the 3 we had at LA Coliseum. It was fantastic. It was proper short track racing. You could overtake on the outside and the inside, a bump and run, and we had some Lightning McQueen moments as well. It was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did not once think in the commentary box, right, let's just get this over with. It was like, come on, let's restart. Let's go now. It was fantastic. I loved it. Definitely great with short track racing. And I don't think it would have worked at any other track bar Bowman Gray for that type, because that track is used week in, week out on Saturdays. Everybody knows it. And the fans were knowing what to spot. So they were quite vocal. You could hear in the back of your headset. And my personal hot of the week was on air saying that because it's Matthew Owens' home state, that he, in the 8-minute interlude, was going to go into the middle and sing for us. And I said he'd be a good opera singer. And he said he wouldn't be on USRN, but no, I think he'd be quite a good opera singer. He's got the lungs and the vocal. So yeah, I was quite disappointed. Owens, you owe me a song, please, on USRN.
My not from Bowman Gray is that it still hasn't been uploaded by NASCAR's YouTube channel. So I still haven't watched it. Normally it's a Tuesday upload. It's now Wednesday night, still not there. Luckily, we've got a week and a half to get it watched before the Daytona festivities kick off next weekend. But I want to watch it so I can then listen to the podcast and be up to speed for next weekend. And it's not there. Come on, NASCAR. Pull your finger out, please.
Yeah, I'll say come on, NASCAR, for another thing. We don't know who the international broadcasters are. It hasn't been announced. So there was a lot of things in the UK where, is it still Premier Sports, even though they've got a year left of the contracts, or is it moving?
I've heard through someone today that they have got it, and they've got it for the next 2 years on Premier. I don't know if that's been officially announced, but if it hasn't, then I'm announcing it now. Matthew says, hello, good evening to Mr. Owens. Big conversation now to be held about what happens with the Clash and Bowman Gray moving forward, because there's talk about it now being North Wilkesboro becoming a points race, and they moving the All-Star race in the summer to Bowman Gray, perhaps.
Let's do both. Let's do both.
Well,
it works.
And that's what Denver's picking up on. He says, I'd love to see NASCAR move to the All-Star race to Bowman Gray, North Wilkesboro to become a points race, and the Clash to become an international race, where plenty of places in Canada they could perhaps go. It would be chilly at this time of the year. Otherwise, I don't know, Mexico. Maybe they could go to Pueblo. We talked about Pueblo on the show.
Pueblo's fantastic,
maybe that was after the show, after we finished, but maybe they could take it to Pueblo. Or a couple of the other NASCAR Mexico ovals that they use.
Something tells me that if you take a deep American-rooted sport and try and put it in Canada or Mexico right now, it's not going to be the best thing. Maybe, maybe the president could ask his motor racing counterpart. Now, who is it? Evening, Danica.
North Wilkesboro moving into coastal spot, perhaps, says Matthew, as a points race.
I think good.
So I think I might have said this same thing when IndyCar went there once and haven't been back. It's the premier.
You've got a race there.
Facility in the country. You've got to go there. And let's see if the short circuit at COTA in a few weeks makes a difference.
Yeah, because the long one, we were sat there in the commentary box, weren't we? Just like, end, please end. So I'm looking forward to this shorter version. To be honest with you, I think IndyCar should have used the shorter version. I don't see why they needed to use the whole track, because it was a 2-minute lap time compared to Formula One. So it's like, it didn't need to be done. IndyCar isn't Formula One. So it was a nice comparison, but no. They could, go on.
So one hot that I just remembered, talking of IndyCar, lots of IndyCar mentions and footage from the 500 especially shown on Saturday night during the Royal Rumble. I was like, Indianapolis on my television. This is great stuff.
Surprisingly, none during NASCAR.
Say again?
There was none during NASCAR. None, not one.
Really?
Not one. I mentioned it in the commentary because we had Fox's pictures. Not one advert to IndyCar.
Interesting. They'll be all over the Super Bowl. You can be sure this weekend. Australia and the UK in perfect countries to go to, says Denver. Well,
Where would else go?
The cost would be astronomical. Would be my first point, and B, Brayfield Oval at Northampton is very, very small and not concreted. Otherwise, yes, take it up the road for me, and I can be the UK's version of Matthew Owens and walking up to this thing and watching all the haulers come in like he was doing on Friday in Winston-Salem. 9 days to go to the Indy 500. Thank you, Mr. Owens. He has got the countdown clock rolling.
Isn't it the 109th this year? Or is it the 108th? What are we on? 109th.
Yes, 109 and 109. There you go.
There you go. Well, we've timed that perfectly, almost like we meant to.
It's almost as if we meant to do it.
I'm out of hot, so there isn't really much.
I think that was pretty much my list covered. Slow week.
Next week's gonna be even worse.
Perhaps it's gonna be a slow weekend this weekend too.
Oh, I'll tell you. Actually, sorry, one more. Big knot. You've got to tick the 2 off. We've done Danica twice, and now it's time to do BS check.
Oh, yeah.
The GPDA didn't know about this new tier. The drivers didn't know about this tier format for swearing and the penalties. They didn't know.
We talked about last week.
Yeah, they did not know. George Russell coming out and said, "No, we didn't know." Alex Wirtz, the president of the GPDA, coming out and saying, "Nope, we weren't informed. Nothing. No, not at all." And now the FIA saying that they're underfunded to pay permanent stewards. Underfunded. Max Verstappen sneezes and they fine him $1,000. It's like they've got more money than anything. It's just, not good. So, that's sort of just slowly bubbling underneath the surface. Oh, and also, my ultimate knot, I've just remembered, get rid of Team LH. Thank you very much. Because the amount of insanity I'm seeing in the Ferrari comments already. Tifosi, enjoy. Bye-bye. Because it has really been toxic. Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, and everybody in the comments, why is Charles Leclerc's name first? Lewis Hamilton's the greatest. He should be first. It's a little thing called the alphabet. Learn it. CL comes before LH.
He's also got a lower number as well. A number would be lower. And also, he hasn't crashed this year so far.
No, he hasn't. Lewis has, yeah. So I don't know how, though. We haven't seen that. What was it? It just went off of the track. So, but yeah, I've got nothing left. You?
Yep. No, I think I'm wrapped.
Yeah, it's been a slow news week. Another hot Ross Chastain will appear in a Busch Beer Super Bowl commercial. Oh, I forgot about that, actually. In fact, I'm more looking forward to the Super Bowl commercials this weekend than anything else. They look great.
Yes, bring back the absolutely bring back the Calder Park Thunderdome. Yes, please. Again, needs a heck of a lot of work doing to it. They had some races there end of 23 on the Roval course, and then it went quiet again. And that's a shame because that would be a good place to have a race in the summer months in Australia. Take the Clash there, then you can have your Brock Feeney's and your Will Browns getting involved, and Cam Waters and things getting involved in the Clash. That would be fun.
I did say let's make Bowman Gray a points race because I think it could be quite interesting. So it'd be funny. But yeah, I'll probably get vetoed for that. All-Star makes a bit of sense as well alongside the Clash. Okay, so please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for helping us reach 1,500 subscribers. And now we're inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air. And you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit our website, gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Michelle, Robin, David, and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folks to help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue growing our media outlet. The link to that is in the video description. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. You can consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. For Kobe Lambeth, there is, and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.